Hello, my name's Olivarez, and today I'm going to present Jane Addams. Born in 1860, died in 1935. She was a women's and immigrants educator, and she won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1935. First of all, I'm going to give you a brief description or background of Jane. This is backwards to you, but looks right to me. Jane Addams was the co-founder of one of the very first settlements in the United States named the Hull House in Chicago, Illinois, which still stands today and has been turned into a museum in her honor. She was born Laura Jane Addams on September 6th, 1860 in Cedarville, Illinois. She was born into an affluent family, the eighth of 9 children. Her father was a successful mill owner and politician. He was very good friends with Abraham Lincoln. Sadly, her mother died giving birth to the 9th Addams child when Jane was only 2 years old. This tragic death led her and her father to building a very close relationship. She often attributes her success through her icons and personal inspirations of her father, John Adams, and Abraham Lincoln, who corresponded often with her father. She led a very privileged adult life, wealthy in knowledge, and was able to experience many opportunities that women of this era were not granted. It is believed that she rejected marriage and motherhood in order to fully commit her life to the poor and social reform and peace conquest. She was the first American woman to be awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1931 in recognition of her activism against war and other forms of violence. In 2007, she was again commemorated when part of Interstate Highway 90 was named in her honor. Addams also served as the first female president of the National Conference of Social Work, established the National Federation of Settlements, and served as president of the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom. Jane suffered a heart attack in 1926 that led to her health decline, and she died on May 21st, 1935 at the age of 74 in Chicago. Now I'm going to discuss her professional writings. She authored a dozen books and over 500 articles of original social philosophy. Her writings were that of a provocative feminist and pragmatist voice. She published a lecture called The Subjective Necessity for Social Settlements in 1892, an essay, The Objective Value of Social Settlements in 1893, a speech, A Modern Lear in 1896, an article, Why the Ward Boss Rules, on April 2nd, 1898. She published a book called Newer Ideals of Peace in 1907, and one of her most famous books, 20 Years at Hull House, which is an autobiography, in 1912. Addams was a frequent lecturer on the subject of peace, and she compiled all of her talks and opinions on ending war in the book Newer Ideals of Peace in 1907. In her autobiography, 20 Years at Hull House, she argued and strongly believed that society should both respect the values and traditions of immigrants and help the newcomers adjust to American institutions. A new social ethic was needed, and Addams said, to stem social conflict and address the problems of urban life and industrial capitalism. Although she was tolerant of other ideas and social philosophies, she believed in Christian morality and the virtue of learning by doing. Okay, now I'm going to talk about professional contributions, assumptions, and ideas. That's backwards. Okay, the most significant thing that Jane Addams is noted for was her co-founding Chicago's Hull House. In 1889, Addams and her college friend Ellen Starr opened one of the first settlements in both the United States and North America, and the first in the city of Chicago, which was called Hull House, named after the building's original owner. The house provided services for the immigrant and poor population living in the Chicago area. Over the years, the organization grew to include more than 10 buildings and extended its services to include child care, educational courses, an art gallery, a public kitchen, playground, gymnasium, cooperative housing for young working women, and many other social programs. In addition to her work at Hull House, Addams began serving on Chicago's Board of Education in 1905, later chairing the school management committee. 5 years later, in 1910, she became the first female president of the National Conference of Charities and Corrections, which is later named the National Conference of Social Work. She went on to establish the National Federation of Settlements the following year, holding the organization's top post for more than 2 decades. as part of her commitment to finding an end to war and advocating for peace, Addams served as president of the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom from 1919 to 1929. For her efforts, she shared the 1931 Nobel Peace Prize with Nicholas Murray Butler, an educator and presidential advisor. She and other Hull House residents sponsored legislation to abolish, to end child labor, establish juvenile courts, limit the hours of working women, recognize labor unions, make school attendance mandatory, and ensure safe working conditions in factories. The Progressive Party adopted many of these reforms as part of its platform in 1912. At the party's national convention, Addams seconded the nomination of Theodore Roosevelt for president and campaigned actively on his behalf. She advocated women's suffrage because she believed that women's votes would provide what was needed to pass social legislation that she was in favor of. Now I'm going to discuss... Ooh. Do I not have that? Oh. Professional contributions, assumptions, and ideas. How relevant she was to society. Jane Addams' personal accomplishments are staggering and are recounted in a number of contemporary biographies. Addams helped to found the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, the American Civil Liberties Union, and the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom. Many of her ideals and noteworthy accomplishments have influenced many people throughout our society. She was a pioneer for women's advancement and suffrage. Without those early years of having a voice, women's rights wouldn't be as they are today. Addams undertook numerous projects with the empowerment of women as her goal. She fought for the poor, for the immigrants, for women, and peace, all groups that are still affected in today's society. Her influence on education in the United States. Okay, so the organizing principle of her social philosophy was progress. She was in favor of progress, moving forward. Jane understood democracy as both a form of socially engaged living and as a framework for social morality. Addams viewed lifelong education as a critical component of an engaged community in a vibrant democracy. Hull House sponsored countless educational projects. Addams strived to improve childhood education by working for legislation to reduce child labor. During this time, child labor laws had not been passed, and oftentimes children were put to work rather than given an opportunity for an education. She believed that education was necessary and should be a right granted to all individuals. Addams' commitment to lifelong education resulted in pioneering work also in adult education. Hull House sponsored college extension courses as well as a variety of educational opportunities for adults in the community, including lectures and clubs. Some people have claimed that Hull House was the birthplace of adult education. I'm going to show you some pictures before I finish of Jane. Actually, this is the museum website. Can you see that? It's hard to see. Well, there's a Jane Addams Hull House museum. And then I have some pictures here. Here's one as a child. That's Jane. As a young adult. This is when she got older, or when she was older. This is Jane at the Hull House reading to kids. This is a picture of the Hull House Museum now as it stands. And then I have a picture of it when it first opened. That's a picture of the original Hull House. Oops. Some pictures inside. Here's the Hull House Women's Club. See Jane, the head of the table. Ooh. Oh, here's the flyer for opening the Whole House Playground. Anyways, that was my presentation on Jane Addams. I got my information from bio.com and history.com. Jane Addams was awesome. Thank you for your attention. Thank you.